Good afternoon. I'm Monika Gul. The provincial elections are around the corner, April 19th to be exact. Joining me by telephone to discuss northern issues is Premier Greg Selinger. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me.
It's great to be with you, Monika.
It's been quite the year for your party, and I'm sure you're trying to move forward since the leadership convention in March. But I must ask, our very own MLA Steve Ashton ran against you in that leadership convention to become leader of the party. Are you two able to put aside the politics, so to speak, and work together to address the needs and concerns of people in the North?
Absolutely. We always have, and we always will. And quite frankly, the results speak for themselves. We've done tremendous investments in the North, and they're making a real difference. Everything from roads to University College of the North to investments in health care, chemotherapy units. All of those things are making a gigantic difference in northern Manitoba.
Okay, you mentioned healthcare, which is a big concern for the residents of Thompson and the North. Our challenges with healthcare are multiplied because of our distance from specialists and certain medical testing, which are only available in Winnipeg. Patients have to travel to Winnipeg, sometimes to be told an appointment is canceled or doctors unavailable. Residents have to incur costs of traveling, food, accommodation. How would you say the NDP has improved healthcare for northern residents? And if re-elected, what will the NDP do to improve it even more?
Well, first and foremost is we've made a gigantic commitment to train more nurses and doctors, and we've met our election commitment to have over 200 doctors. We're up around 220, and we train doctors to serve in all parts of Manitoba. And a doctor wanting to live and work in northern Manitoba or rural Manitoba can get huge amount of support for their education to do that. So we're very interested in recruiting northerners to be in the healthcare field. The other big thing that's really making a difference is technology. We have programs called telehealth, where a physician or a doctor in the North can have direct access to a specialist and have the technology to do a diagnosis and get expert advice on responding to a patient in the North so they don't have to travel as much. And of course, we want to make sure that we continue to attract people to be in the North and travel in the North and offer specialist services. So those are all part of the mix. We think northern Manitoba has to be treated the same as every other part of Manitoba. And we have great communities in the North. One of the challenges is to get people up there to see our communities. When they do, and they feel the warmth of the people in the North, they get to know the folks, they see the quality of life they can have in the North, they're often much more interested in being part of the community.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You're trying to attract more doctors and nurses to the North. How exactly have you guys been doing that?
Well, we have good bursaries, and a person who goes into the North can just about get all of their tuition back. We have the graduate tuition tax rebate in Manitoba. A physician or a nurse trained anywhere that meets the qualifications to work in Manitoba can get at least, if not more, than 60% of their tuition back when they live and work in the province. So in the case of physicians, it can go higher, and there's special supports for physicians in the North in terms of how we structure some of the fees that they get as well. So we provide incentives to have good quality professionals in the North. And I have to say, it's much more important and much more positive than what we see from the opposition, who have talked about two-tier health care or have focused on getting rid of the health and education levy. In the case of the Liberals, they've said they want to get rid of that. That's $471 million that wouldn't be available for health and education. So two-tier health care and corporate giveaways on taxes just aren't going to solve the problems of healthcare in the North. We have a plan, and the plan is one where we listen to the residents and the people in the North and then try to find the best, most cost-effective solution so that they can have the services they deserve.
For sure, an increase in nurses and doctors is great, but obviously having certain medical equipment is important as well for us here in the North. I know our municipal government has been actively lobbying for an MRI to come to Thompson. Is this something the province is exploring to bring to us?
Well, I can't make announcements in the blackout period, but we're always interested in how we can make sure technology is there to do the best diagnosis possible. We have the community cancer program at the Thompson General Hospital. We have telehealth sites in the PA and Woboden. We've committed to a new primary health clinic at the PA. So as we go forward, we look for the kinds of tools that will allow our healthcare professionals provide the best service and the best care possible and the best diagnosis for people. In the area of healthcare, cancer care, we've committed to what we call a 0 to 60 approach, where from diagnosis to treatment in 60 days. And I actually, just before the blackout period came into effect, I announced a very significant commitment to Cancer Care Manitoba, which serves the whole province, to have a state-of-the-art facility to do the research that we need to be able to beat cancer. We're starting to see cancer rates, cancer deaths go down. The earlier we detect cancer and get at it, the more we can do to save lives. So we're very committed to moving that forward, and that was a very significant dollar commitment that will move forward on that new cancer care facility, which will serve the entire province.
Patients in the north will still have to obviously travel to Winnipeg. There are still some medical services that are only available there. And one thing that makes it easier for these patients are facilities that will provide accommodation at a reduced price.
Yes.
For example, a Port in the Storm is one that many people here rallied to get. However, it's not still easy to get into because it's usually full. Would the NDP government look at helping fund another facility like this?
Well, those ideas are good. They're community-driven ideas. We work with them. I'm aware of some of these services, and I've known people that have used them and greatly benefited from them. When you come to town, if you have to come to town for an essential service, the accommodation issue is a challenge, and we always should look for ways to expand that in partnership with community organizations. And our Manitoba Housing Department is also always willing to look at how they can use their facilities to look after people as well. So we want to make the best use of our facilities and our community capacity to serve people and make sure that, you know, if they're going through a difficult time on healthcare, that it's not going to be a financial burden. That's one of the reasons, for example, that we made cancer drugs free to people outside of hospitals. So that means they can be at home with their families. They can carry on in the workplace if they're well enough to do that and have free cancer care drugs and not have to worry about the choice between buying their medications or groceries. So free cancer care drugs in Manitoba was a big commitment we made in the last election. We've 100% delivered on that, and we're going to make sure that's available to everybody, including northern citizens of Manitoba.
All right. Now, there's also a program that makes it easier, bridges the gap between the North and the Winnipeg, and that's the Northern Transportation Program. I've heard of problems with this program, and I've heard of patients who, for example, have been told by a doctor that they shouldn't be traveling for a long distance with a bus, yet the program will deem that their illness doesn't qualify them, for example, for a plane ride. Are there thoughts of improving the program or looking at reevaluating what the program covers and what it doesn't cover?
Well, the Northern Transportation Program, you'll remember when the Conservatives were in office, they actually had a user charge on it, which was a real burden on northern citizens. We took that user charge off so that you could have access to that service without having to pay up front to be eligible for it. And if there's other improvements we can make in that program that will make sure that people's health is improved, not deteriorated when they have to travel, then we should take a look at that, and we're always open to those ideas. I mean, we're committed to the Canada Health Act, which was, and let's remember, Medicare was brought in by a new Democratic government under Tommy Douglas, or at the time the CCF, and we've always supported universally accessible, comprehensive health care with no major user charge. Like, it's got to be based on need, not the size of your wallet, and under public administration, so it's available to all Manitobans. And so we will continue to find ways to make universal health care available to all Manitobans. And northern Manitobans need that service and will get that service.
Okay. Sort of in the theme with the distance, transportation. I know the province recently announced that it'll be conducting a transportation study in an effort to restore the bus service to northern and rural Manitobans. Can you tell us how this assessment will look like, and what's the likelihood that more transportation options come out of this?
Well, that's one that's right in the wheelhouse of MLA Ashton, who's the Minister of Transportation. We've seen Greyhound bus pull out of service out of Manitoba unless they got massive subsidies. But what we do know is we have school systems that require transportation. We have our agencies and health authorities and hospitals that require transportation. We know individuals need transportation. So the study will look at how we can bring all of those demands for service together to justify a business case for a local operator to provide that service in our communities. And we look towards partnering with communities to do those kinds of things. We've done it with short-line railways. We think that there's the potential to do that as well for bus service and allow people to have that opportunity to get from A to B with a reasonable cost service that they otherwise might not be able to take that trip. So it's important we do that study and look for ways to provide community-owned and or privately owned services in communities, but committed to serving those communities in a reasonable, cost-effective way.
Would it be too soon to say when something like this would come to fruition?
Well, the study has to be done. I think the study will move forward quickly. We've already put legislation in place that will facilitate those kinds of operations taking root in our province. So it's about the economic feasibility of it. The legislative framework is already in place.
Okay. The mild start to the winter, it has cut the winter road season short this year, as many people know, and many isolated communities want an all-weather road. What's being done to provide them with that?
Well, that's a great question, because one of the great challenges of our time is climate change, and that means more volatile weather. That means warmer weather. We're seeing impacts on our northern winter roads all over the province. We've got a gigantic commitment on the east side of Manitoba, what we call the East Side Road Authority. We're building all-weather roads into communities that have never had roads before. We're doing it in partnership with communities so that they can have opportunities to create businesses, to do some of the work, community benefits agreements, and the training that goes along with that. So we've seen the Conservatives say they want to cancel that East Side Road Authority agency. Not a good idea. We think that we've got to find ways to move that forward. We're looking forward, actually, to the federal infrastructure stimulus program. That could help us accelerate that program. We've got northern communities on the radar for these kinds of services, but we're already doing it. We're building a record number of all-weather roads into communities that have never had a road before, and we want the federal government to be part of that solution for the north. They've said they wish to do that. We'd like to see that happen, and we're going to be pushing them to do that.
I was going to say, because right now, as it stands, it would take about 30 years for the East Side Road Authority project to be complete, right? And with the federal government, you guys are saying that you'd be able to cut that in half?
We'd like to accelerate that, and we're putting that case to them. We'd like to see that move faster. It's a multi-billion-dollar commitment. We've been working on it for several years and making good progress, but 30 years is a long time. It's an opportunity to hook up some of those communities in the north that need to have linkages going to the west of them into places like the PAW, into places that are northern hubs for services and goods. And so the roads is a big part of that, and it's very clear that with the way the world is changing in terms of the climate, that we're going to need more all-weather roads. And we started early on that. We lead the country on that, but a federal partner would really allow us to accelerate that.
What about an all-weather road to Churchill? What's the feasibility of that?
Well, that's an option. We're trying to make sure we keep the railway there. That's job one. As you know, there are some discussions going on about how we retain that service. When the federal Conservatives cut the wheat board, that reduced the amount of wheat going through there. That put a greater pressure on everybody. We have Via Rail that serves those communities as well. So we'd like to see a northern solution that preserves the railway. But a road is also something that could be considered. But right now, job one is to keep the railway moving.
And as you know, the Omnitracks and the Hud Bay Rail, it is for sale right now. What are your thoughts on this? Will it be able to continue and potentially flourish with the new ownership?
Well, we'd like to see that. There's a feasibility study going on right now to look at the economics of that. The federal government's involved on that file, along with us and local communities and First Nations bands. And we really believe everybody has to come around the table and come up with a solution that allows that railway to be in the north and run by northern people. So we think that solution has to move forward, and we want that to move along.
The NDP has committed to creating 5 restorative justice hubs throughout the province to support existing programs and coordinate services. But as far as I know, the locations of these hubs have not been made public. I know this is something that many people in Thompson are pushing to have, a physical facility, restorative justice facility here. What are the chances of one of them being built in Thompson?
Well, I can't make announcements right now because of the blackout period, but this restorative justice legislation that we've brought forward, we think is the way forward. And we think it's very important that we take a new approach and not just have everybody in jail for a long period of time, that we find ways for the community to be in charge of their own justice solutions and people can find redemption or find ways to pay back any damages that they've caused, or provide community services in a way that allows them to be stronger citizens and allows communities to have a greater sense of safety. So restorative justice is a big theme across the country. It's part of that larger theme of reconciliation that's going on across the country right now. And so the future of that is one that we're very positive about. I can't say today that it will be in one particular community, but when we're going to have 5 hubs, the North is going to have to be served, and it's certainly on the radar for a major facility. So we'll take a look at that as we go forward.
Okay. Food costs can get pretty high in the North, especially in isolated communities. As I'm sure you know, the Liberals have come out with a plan to address food security, committing $25 million in the first year of the program. I know the NDP government has made investments towards health food initiatives, but do you think it's been enough, and are you prepared to do more?
Well, this Northern Healthy Foods is fundamentally important. People are paying, in some communities, way too much for importing foods from the South. So we've had the Northern Healthy Foods Initiative going on for several years now, and the key coordinator actually met with her when I was in Thompson just at the beginning of last year, and they do tremendous amount of good work. There's over, a decade ago, there were a handful of community gardens. We've got 900 community gardens now. We've got 450 freezers, 60 small greenhouses, 30 small livestock projects in some 15 communities. I visited the social enterprise in Garden Hill, where young people were raising their own chickens and turkeys and growing their own vegetables and using the waste from the fishery to fertilize the gardens. It was a great story. It gave jobs to people. It allowed food to be less expensive for people. It was healthy food. I was in Churchill recently, where we announced the Affordable Food in Remote Manitoba program. And when you take the first letter of each of those words, it comes out to be affirm. We're putting that into communities that to keep the price points down. We're thrilled that the federal government says they want to put more into that, because that'll allow more communities to be served. They have an obligation to do that. We've gone ahead of them. But we think it's very important that people be able to grow and have their own food locally. That way they won't be dependent on prices from the South.
Well, I was going to say, unfortunately, do you think it's very feasible for people to be growing their own foods when there are still products that are already on the markets that are still expensive? So I guess, how do you make sure that the people that need the food are getting access to that food? Well,
2 ways. Once we have to have a subsidy program, such as the federal government offers in some communities, and our Affirm program, which is covering off some of the communities the federal government left out. We look forward to them to expanding that program. So you have the program to make sure we keep the prices reasonable on essential foods, and then find ways to grow and raise more of our own food, protein and vegetables in the North, along, of course, with maintaining healthy fisheries so that people can have access to healthy choices in foods. That's very important for the future, and we're looking at that actually all over the place, because with the changes in the dollar that are going on in this country right now, food prices are going up. It's a big issue, and it's always been a big issue for Northern people. So we're looking for ways to keep people healthy. That keeps costs down in the healthcare system. Healthy food, healthy protein is part of the mix, and it's important that we do it. But, Manitoba is considered a leader in the country for what we're doing with our Northern Healthy Foods Initiative. I know young people that have studied at university, and the only good examples they can find of Northern Healthy Foods Initiatives are in Manitoba. So we should be proud of what we're doing and look at ways to improve it and expand it.
The province has committed to taking in Syrian refugees. However, I know we're sort of reaching our max capacity at about 150 people each 2 weeks. Is the North being explored as a place to settle some of these refugees?
We'd love northern communities that have the opportunity for jobs and housing for refugees to be in touch with us. We put a press release out a week ago inviting interest from communities. We have had interest in rural and northern communities. The key we're taking more refugees in Manitoba as a proportion of our population than any other province in the country. We've always had a strong story of receiving newcomers here and helping them settle down and become citizens and get jobs. So if northern communities know they have housing available, some of the families we're getting are quite large. They're often 6+ families, members. So that type of housing is a little more tricky to identify and make available, but we're looking for communities that are welcoming of newcomers and refugees, and if they're interested, please call us, and we can see what we can do. But yes, we're looking to locate people in communities that want them and can provide housing and jobs.
Have you been in discussion with the town of Churchill by any chance? Just because I know that their mayor and council is conducting some sort of research to determine if Churchill could be a suitable destination. Is that something that you guys are working?
Yes, I have discussed that with the mayor, and I'm aware of his interest.
Okay.
Yes.
Lots of announcements have been made regarding education and improvements to education over the past few months. How is the NDP specifically addressing the situation of poor graduation rates, particularly in northern schools and on reserve schools?
It's a great question. We've gone, graduation rates when we came in was a serious concern for us, and we wanted to improve on that, and we've made significant improvements. We've gone from a 71% graduation rate to an 87% graduation rate, and I remember proudly being at the opening of the Cranberry Portage residential facility that is supported by Frontier School Division, and Linda Ballantyne was there, the chair of the Frontier School Division, who has done a terrific job with the other members of the school board there. And that allowed students that had been, forgotten about, had dropped out of school to come back, get a grade 12 education, get exposure to a trade like carpentry, because we have an old air hangar there that they can learn to build houses in. Those houses are often purchased by Manitoba Housing to provide better housing in our northern communities. So those kinds of things are very important. The school division you have in Thompson does a great job with their community schools and with their initiatives to keep students in school. And we have a lot of confidence in the quality of education being offered in your school division in Thompson. But we want to work in partnership with teachers, parents, and communities to allow more people to feel safe and welcome at schools and give them that extra support to get over the hump and get a high school graduation. And when they're in high school, we also want them to have access to a first-year trade experience or college experience or university experience. And right in Thompson, we have that tremendous facility, the University College of the North, which is close to the secondary, the high school, and close to the community facilities. Those kinds of investments will pay long-term dividends for northern people to get a high-quality education close to home.
Okay. Obviously, economic development and diversification is important here in the North. I know the Progressive Conservatives have promised that a PC government would launch Yes North, an initiative to promote strategic economic development and tourism in Manitoba's northern communities. I know the NDP has introduced similar initiatives, but it's hard to say if there's been an improvement. What is the NDP's plan for the North when it comes to economic development, tourism, diversification, etc.?
Well, we've been in the North with our Opportunities North strategy, where we're listening to residents. I was at one of the meetings that Opportunities North held in the PAW, and there's tremendous interest in northern housing. They want to, of course, keep our education strong in the North, and we're the government that brought in University College of the North and have made very significant investments in that, both in Thompson and the PAW, including residences for students to be able to have stable housing while they're close to school. We're very interested in more trades opportunities in the North. We're building Manitoba Hydro up there right now. The kiosk project is going full bore with hundreds of people working there. Northern residents are a huge part of that story. The Conservatives have said they wouldn't build hydro for export. That would be a real problem, because then we wouldn't be able to keep the rates down and have these jobs going on right now. So we standardized the rates for northern and rural Manitoba when they were high. They had higher rates for northern and rural Manitoba under the Conservatives. We're bringing those we got that price standardized and lowered for northern residents and rural residents. But we like to see hydro as part of the story. We like to see ecotourism as part of the story. We want to see diversification of services in tourism. I know there's the Wolf Project in Thompson there that we hear a lot about, and there's some good opportunities there. We think everything we can do to build better facilities in the North, including recreation facilities, is an important part of the story. Better roads is an important part of the story, and we've made a record investment in northern roads, and better sewer and water. The basics count, and then we have to work with our small businesses to ensure that they can provide services in the North, including trades. All of those things help have a vibrant northern economy, and when dollars are invested in the community and turnover in the community, that makes the economy stronger. So we're looking at all of those ideas as we go forward.
The party has made investments, but people who live up here, they don't necessarily see these improvements. And I know things don't happen overnight, but how do you ensure that the diversification plans that you guys have and the investments that you're making are actually working?
The key to that is to have partnerships with local leadership, your local city council, your local community development corporations, First Nations people, and their governments. When we all pull together, the sector councils for the North for skills, that's important. The governance and administration of University College of the North, when we get everybody around the table, and we've actually announced a new skills facility worth about $14 million in the Thompson area, so we can train more people up there for the trades. Those things make a huge difference, and those commitments we're making, they're real, they're practical, they're based on what we've heard from people in the North, and they're based on having good leadership in the North, and that's the key. The partnerships are the key to make things work.
Okay, I will pose this last question to you in the theme still of diversification and investments here. I know that a common feeling here in the North is that we're forgotten. It can sometimes feel as though the focus and investments are made in the South and the needs of Northerners aren't addressed or met. What's your response to that? Are you able to ensure Northerners that an NDP government is committed to addressing the needs of the North?
Well, I can tell you this. I spend a lot of time working with Northern MLAs, including yours, including Eric Robinson, including Amanda Laughlin, and Clarence Peterson. In all of those communities, we love the North. We see tremendous potential for the North. You look at the legislature, the Golden Boy points north. And we have tremendous opportunities there in the future if we have the willingness to work together to accomplish them, and I believe we do. And that's why our Northern Plan is based on partnership. So I can tell you this, if you take a look at the amount we've invested in roads, if you take a look at the money we've invested in healthcare and education, there was no University College of the North under the Conservatives. There was no investments in Northern medical, more doctors and nurses and nurse practitioners, and the technology that we're seeing up there right now. The difference has been very significant. It's been very clear that there's very significant amounts of money in our budget to do these things. We always advocate for the North when we go to the federal table to make sure that people in First Nations communities get better access to education. Our Frontier School Division has received good, solid funding. We're the only government in Canada that has not cut education funding during this recession. We've increased it because we know the future is with our young people, and our young people will only have a good future if they get a good education and the skills that allow them to enter the labor market and do those jobs. So I can tell you for sure, we believe in the North, and we have a strong partnership with the North, and the vision that we develop with the North will be done in consultation with Northern people, and we'll move forward together.
Okay. Thank you once again for taking the time to speak with me, Mr. Selinger.
Thank you.